UFOs and alien technologies aren't merely for conspiracy theorists and sci-fi fanatics to speculate about. NASA provides funds to credible scientists who are looking for real-life ETs, and we've been monitoring the skies for traces of artificial signals for decades. However, the UK government took the threat of UFOs so seriously in the 1950s that intelligence leaders gathered to address the matter. Ministers even ordered a team of intelligence experts to produce weekly reports on UFO sightings. Over the years, experts have explored the extensive history of government efforts to conceal the truth of alien existence. In today's video, we'll look at what we believe are the most compelling and revealing cases of government cover-ups. In England's southwest county of Wiltshire stands Rudloe Manor. The Rudloe Manor appears to be any other English estate at first glance, yet beneath the building and land are almost 2 million square feet of underground tunnels. The tunnels were built during the 1930s when Rudloe's quarry was mined for Bathstone. During World War II, Rudloe Manor hosted the Royal Air Force, RAF, in its underground tunnels. Here is where the mystery begins. During the war, England took Rudloe Manor and nearby lands to establish munitions dumps. Unlike other private military outposts utilised during the war, Rudloe Manor was never released from England's Ministry of Defence, MOD. It was speculated that Rudloe was the British equivalent of Roswell, since Dorothy Kilgallen, an American reporter and writer, had published a newspaper piece about a crash in the 1940s. Kilgallen claims she acquired her information from a high-ranking British official who wished to remain anonymous. Because neither the American nor British governments have been forthcoming about UFOs, we have grounds to assume that something unusual occurred at Rudloe. Like Roswell, the spacecraft remains along with the aliens were gathered up by the British government and secreted away. When Kilgallen died under suspicious circumstances, it fueled the conspiracy theories surrounding Rudloe. Is it likely that Kilgallen was silenced because of her knowledge of Britain's UFO protocols? Or was it due of her knowledge of JFK's death? Nobody knows for sure why. What is known is that Kilgallen died mysteriously. Her death was first attributed to a drug overdose. However, her body was discovered fully dressed and sitting straight in her bed. Later, stories said she and her companions were close to finding JFK's murderer. One would think her death was linked to her investigation on JFK's assassination, but all of her research on both JFK's murder and the information concerning the UFO crash, as well as her official high-ranking source, went missing. Georgios Tsoukalos, theorist of ancient aliens, and former Ministry of Defence employee Nick Pope decided to make a visit to both Rudloe Manor and the CCC some 2 miles down the road. Underground tunnels linked the CCC to the mansion. Tsoukalos arrived at the spot to find it surrounded by barbed wire fencing, patrol dogs and security cameras. A facility with an underground entrance and a pretty simple CCC sign, Caution Computer Centre. Tsoukalos comes up to the door with his film team, seeking to figure out what the centre is and what it does. The problem is that the local police arrive a few minutes later and question Tsoukalos' presence there. He is then told to cease filming and leave the location. This begs the question, why is this place so heavily guarded? What is the secret that the MOD doesn't want the public to know about inside the bunker? When pressed, the MOD claimed that the facility was merely a Royal Navy data processing centre. If this is the case, why isn't there a sign indicating that it belongs to the Navy? Why is there a basic, unprofessional-looking sign that states Caution Computer Centre, but says nothing about what the location is or does? All of the secrecy suggests a cover-up. As a result, this complex, particularly the underground facilities below, was at the centre of Britain's covert UFO investigation, and the UFO community claims that crashed UFOs are where the UK keeps its extraterrestrial technology. This institution was used for a variety of secrets, research, investigation and initiatives. There are even reports of extraterrestrial bodies. Could the final proof of government communication with extraterrestrials be concealed beneath our feet? No matter what's happening down there, it's massive. In the summer of 1947, a rancher discovered strange debris in a sheep field outside Roswell, New Mexico. Although local Air Force authorities said it was a crashed weather balloon, many locals suspected it was the remnants of an extraterrestrial flying saucer. A series of secret dummy drops in New Mexico throughout the 1950s heightened their suspicions. Nearly 50 years after the news of the unexplained debris surfaced, the US military produced a report attributing the event to Experiment Mogul, a top-secret atomic espionage project. Despite this, many people continue to believe in the UFO theory, and hundreds of curious visitors visit Roswell and the crash site each year. It is now the most renowned UFO event in history, in part because the Army reported the craft as a flying disc. However, the military swiftly changed their account. Within days, the authorities stated that the fallen object was only a weather balloon, giving the enigmatic Roswell UFO an earthly origin. Soon after, Major Jesse Marcel, the Roswell Army Airfield's chief intelligence officer, drove to Fort Worth, Texas to inspect the wreckage retrieved from the Roswell crash site. He and Brigadier General Roger Ramey, commander of the 8th Air Force, were set to brief the media on their findings. According to one expert, it came out that President Truman sent orders to General Ramey, hold up something, get some Reynolds wrap off the fish in your freezer and hold it up and say, "That's what you found, not a disc," which is exactly what they did. And the reporters basically just turned around, went home. For UFO researchers, the infamous shot contains proof that the genuine debris from Roswell was substituted with a weather balloon, as well as hints as to what was being kept concealed from the public. In the wake of all this, you can plainly see General Roger Ramey carrying a piece of paper while posing for pictures with Jesse Marcel. General Ramey was holding a paper known as the Ramey Memo. Some academics have been able to zoom in on this and clarify at least some elements of the language using modern forensic document analysis and digital enhancement. What it tells us is incredible. The message included language like victims of the wreck and disc that we will ship. So clearly, more than a weather balloon was involved here. There is evidence of an FBI document stating that whatever was discovered was being taken to Wright Field for analysis. Is it likely that the remains of the spacecraft retrieved from the New Mexico desert more than 70 years ago are still housed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio? And if so, might they be attempting to duplicate extraterrestrial technology using the debris? There have been several UFO sightings in the Dayton area in recent years. Witnesses in the vicinity have reported seeing odd objects hovering above Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, even in broad daylight. This is a strong likelihood, which is backed by the fact that no aircraft are launched when these UFOs emerge. It's almost as though they understand what they are. Perhaps it's because it's one of our own reverse-engineered vessels. Many individuals now think that the government and military are concealing the truth concerning extraterrestrial landings in and around Roswell. In central Montana on March 16, 1967, the Echo Flight Missile Combat Crew were below ground in the E-Flight Launch Control Center, LCC, or capsule. Before dawn, sentries and maintenance personnel near the base's nuclear missile silos noticed strange lights flashing back and forth across the sky. These lights are so intense that the guys on the ground are unable to recognize them. However, when one of them takes up a position just outside the base's security gate, a sentry reports a UFO to his superior. One of the missiles abruptly went offline, followed by another, then another, until the entire flight of missiles was unexpectedly disabled. According to Nick Redfern, this was highly disturbing because it suggested in the event that UFOs one day become hostile, our entire atomic arsenal may become completely inoperable. In June 2019, Giorgio Tsoukalos planned to meet with retired Air Force missile launch officer Robert Salas, who was stationed at Malmstrom on the night of this landmark UFO occurrence. Salas, a young Air Force first lieutenant at the time, was on duty deep below at Montana's Malmstrom Air Force Base when he got a phone call from the topside flight security controller. The non-commissioned officer noticed several weird lights in the sky doing peculiar movements. The controller phoned back minutes later. This time his tone was panicked. He yelled over the phone about a huge bright red object hanging above the facility's front gate. He and his men were armed and ready to tackle whatever it was. Salas, according to an affidavit he later signed, directed the controller not to let anything through the gate. Salas then alerted his commanding officer, First Lieutenant Frederick Mywald. As Salas described the situation, alarms flashed red on the command panel, suggesting that all 10 Minutemen III nuclear ICBMs under the facility's supervision were unable to launch. The weapons had been disarmed by someone or something. Some lights displayed a fault code for a guidance system failure, and some of the fault lights also flashed the connected security violations indicators. It indicated a breach of security at the launch site. Salas soon dispatched an investigation team. The crew stated that those at the launch site had seen the same strange item, but it had vanished by the time they arrived. The incident ended almost as swiftly as it began. Salas was then instructed not to speak about his experience again by the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, which classified the episode as secret. Salas signed an affidavit in 2010 concerning his 1967 experience, hoping that it might encourage other veterans to come forward with their own accounts of unexplained activity. Salas, unfazed by Washington's earlier dismissals, persists in his attempts to persuade federal authorities to take veterans' UFO encounters seriously. He also cautions that UFO encounters are more likely to occur near nuclear weapons locations. Officials from the military have never given an explanation for the missile deactivation. Were extraterrestrials to blame? We may never know, since the US military has been covering it up for more than 50 years. Let's hear what you have to say about these incidents in the comments section.